Hey everyone, Chris here with MK Partners, and I am joined today by Tommy and Jesse, also on the MK Partners team. Thanks for joining, guys. And
Great.
to, and today we are taking a look and chatting about the Spring 23 Salesforce release, uh, one of the regular three Salesforce releases that happen every year, the others being the summer and the winter ones. Um, and we're filming this on Friday, the 13th of January, which is the official kickoff of the release weekend. So,
Mhm.
you know, probably no reason to be worried about bad luck when new features are rolling out, but just to play it safe, for most of us, the rollout will be, the first and second weeks of February. This is really just like pilot weekend for those super early adopter orgs. Um, we read through the release notes. Release notes have been live for about a month or two now. And as always, they are super long. They have, 1,000 things in them. Salesforce itself has so many products that it's really hard to read them all. You can kind of really only focus on the ones that are relevant. But we here do our best to read through all of them and grab the ones that catch our eye that we think are going to be the most relevant to our day-to-day efforts or those of our clients. And so we each kind of put together our picks for what we're most looking forward to. Jesus, why don't you kick us off with your picks for coolest things coming in the Spring 23 release?
Awesome. Thank you, Chris, and thanks everybody here, and thank you for joining us. Yes, so pretty much this time around, since we're starting off, this is the first one of this year. So I figure I kind of find some things that caught my attention. Primarily, something that's not that I'm not used to seeing, or something that's new, that's kind of relevant to what's going on in the world itself, since Salesforce is kind of embodied within the entire world. So to kick things off is the capture inclusive data that now provides both gender identity and pronouns within Salesforce. So this is actually a nice little pick list fields option, which comes with a default set that you can use, or you can custom create your own. I'm pretty sure a lot of existing orgs already had something. They had to create like a custom field of some sort to probably fulfill this need, because based on the environment they're working on, they need to have that information. But now Salesforce realizing that that there is this new push and drive out there, and it's already something that's been there for some time. They're kind of making this part of the norm, so it's going to be more of a standard object and field configuration, instead of having to create some sort of custom solution for it, which I'm pretty sure shouldn't be that difficult. But it's nice to kind of have like these kind of identity ability to kind of say, okay, well, should be part of the norm. It's kind of like an application, right? You have certain fields that you'll have. This is one of like the more default fields now moving forward. So that
Yeah,
caught my attention. I'm pretty sure that's going to be something seen across multiple orgs.
yeah, it is really cool that like you said, like it's not that it would be the hardest thing in the world to implement or configure yourself. But a company like Salesforce knows that they're going to have some clients who don't do that, who just use certain things right out of the box. And so it's nice for them to do something so that, like, if you just use these fields right out of the box, at least they'll be inclusive and you're not going to like
Right.
default people into sort of an outdated binary or something. It's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
Salesforce makes the change once, solves it for everybody, as opposed to being like, okay, first thing you do when you sign up, now you got to fix this.
Right.
I
So yeah,
I would
that's
love
definitely
to see
caught my eye.
I would love to see a change. I feel like there's always the uh when you're like doing applications or something, that prefix field where it's like Mr. Doctor, Sir, all those different things you can put like before a name. I never know what to
Mm-hmm.
pick for those. So I feel
Right.
like I could use a tweak on that field.
Well, it's something we want to throw out there to Salesforce. See if they could pick it up for next year or something. Because I know it takes them a little while to kind of start implementing this stuff. As we're talking about right now, I'm pretty sure summer 23 is already in discussion in terms of what they're going to put in that pipeline. So we'll have to
Yeah,
push it to winter or potentially spring 2024. But
yeah.
definitely like the idea. All right. So next up is, let's see here real quick.
I think it was about automation rules in real time,
Yes.
which I think is a
Thank you.
hard
I
out feature.
apologize there. My Yes. All right. Yes. Automations in real time. So this one was a little bit interesting here on my end, just because I wasn't familiar of the whole understanding of real time versus real time. So I kind of like, oh, wait a second, what's going on here? So I even used Chat GPT on this one to kind of give me a better understanding of what it meant automation rules in real time versus automation rules in general. Right. So the whole aspect of being able to run it at that instance when something happens, it triggers, it deploys the action. So whatever decision maker has to be contributed. So if a trigger of some sort happens, then the action will take place immediately right after that trigger occurred. Now, because I believe they want to go ahead and help identify any issues or be able to bulk, what do you call, trigger. So you have to put some sort of what do you call timestamp to let know when a trigger happens after a certain period, then the action will take place. So I'm assuming intervals, maybe a couple hours, maybe 30 minutes, 10 minutes of some sort, or maybe it's just automated in the back end by Salesforce. But that feature is going to be going away in June. So anybody that still has that set up will default and will no longer be able to choose the real-time option. I'm assuming that was very helpful for some use cases where people needed something to happen as soon as it triggered. Now Salesforce is taking a step back and saying, well, we can't iterate that as in real time anymore. We're going to have to iterate it in intervals. I'll be interested to find out because I was trying to look into it more. I couldn't find out what the intervals were, but I'm just guessing in terms of just real time or general, just like every 15 minutes, every hour, every other hour, or for 8 hours if you're doing like a binary 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 8, 16, 32 type of style. But any new automation rules that are going to be created are no longer going to have that option available. So I'll be interested to know what other people think. And if you do have any comments, please add them in the comment section of this video there to kind of consider what else to look into. So I'll definitely be doing some more research on it because there wasn't that much available at the time.
Yeah. To me, the thing, so basically the breakdown is that automation rules used to run in real time in the sense that, the rule is looking for these criteria to get matched. If there's a match, then take this action, right?
Mhm.
And it was sort of like always listening, waiting for something to match. And now it's not always listening, but it'll instead once an hour or once every 12 hours or once
Right.
a week say like, okay, does anything meet that? Let me check. Which I guess creates like a little bit of a weird use case if somebody, you know, if something changes where they would have matched, but it's between intervals and then they unmatch that criteria again, the auto rule probably won't fire.
Right. That's why I'm curious to see how that's going to work. Like, what's the interval time? Because then people are going to have to start looking into those use cases to figure out, okay, we have to generate this use case scenario where if this happens, then we still want this to trigger. So how do we go about making that? So I'm more interested to figure out, like I said, I guess to me, the only thing I can think of right up top, just logically, is resources, right? So if something is listening constantly, it must be consuming a lot of resources. So at which point, if every automation rule is being set up at real time, then that means that everything is listening all at once, which I'm assuming is all about bandwidth and consumption of how much space and time is needed for all this. So maybe helping, this kind of executing in intervals will help address some of these issues of resources. Like I said, this is just my opinion speaking. I don't know, and that's why I want to be looking into it more.
And I wanted to spring up real quick because I got my blog post covering spring 23 release also covers this topic, and I also was equally as surprised by this. But I think the difference, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the real time option, and this is what you were saying basically, is that it was probably consuming a lot of bandwidth for the real time option. It was constantly looking for different parameters that would be constantly changing off an automation rule, whereas a traditional automation rule, I think, is more retroactive, and so it's not consuming as much bandwidth or as much horsepower. And also, what I was seeing with clients over the years is that the real time option really didn't seem like it was all that popular. either. So perhaps that's the reasoning for why it's being retired. But needless to say, I think it's surprising that it's going away. But I think there's like multiple reasons for it. And then to me, what struck me is just popularity, and then also maybe there's bandwidth issues or compatibility issues of migrating that real time platform into Marketing Cloud for some reason. That's just my take.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, I can't think of many things. Like when you mention it, yeah, there was always that real-time checkbox. And I feel like there was always a little parenthetical that was like, this is really resource intensive, or like this will affect performance, or something that made you go like, I'm not going to check it for this. But for the most of the things that you would want sort of an immediate action on would be like an autoresponder email or something. And like that's like, as long as I can still trigger that from a completion action from the form success or landing page or the custom redirect taking them to some gated content, then I don't need a real-time auto rule for that. The only thing I really use a real-time automation rule is for like grading adjustments, right? And like my grading adjustments can be done every 24 hours instead of in real time. So I feel like this is probably not gonna like break too many people's processes, but definitely worth keeping your eye on in case you have anything that is real time that is keeping the roof on or something.
Yeah, I think it's like more like with real time, it's like I think as we said, it's like constantly looking for changes, and that's why it's involving a lot more horsepower. Whereas I think automation rules will fire like off the top of my head once like every it's looking for changes retroactively like every like I think between 5 and 15 minutes or something. That real time option is like it's like constantly firing off. So kind of a rare use case, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And then Jessie, next up, I think you had MFA auto enablement, which I feel like we've been talking about for years at this point.
Right. So this caught my attention because I didn't realize that, they provided, I guess it makes sense, Salesforce does provide enough time for all the orgs to kind of implement some of their features that they're going to be deploying in each of these releases. And it looks like they're actually going to be turning on the auto enablement for the MFA requirement. So pretty much if you don't have it already set up, then this is going to go through and start requiring you to have it set up. There's two different phases that it's going to do this on. And actually, the first one already started as of winter 23, and here going into spring 23 is going to be affected. So those organizations that fall into that criteria, you can use that trust status link that's been provided in our article there to go ahead and kind of identify when your org is intended to have this auto-enabled. And the second release actually goes into effect starting this release up until summer 23 there. And then after that, if you fall into neither one of those, then you'll be allocated a certain time. So pretty much this is just enforcing that MFA is not a requirement within Salesforce, and it's just going to be turning it on within your org. So whatever tool or service you use to kind of comply to this, because there were various methods, and I believe there's probably even a few more that have been released since this first became a discussion topic sometime last year. Now it's more okay. It's required. You have to have something. If not, this could actually affect your day-to-day operations. I don't think it's going to completely close you out, but you're going to have to take action. So those departments that have to get involved must go ahead and start implementing protocols to go ahead and comply with this. All right, and the last one here is going to be regarding permission sets. So this one, being in a beta environment, so meaning that it's still being modified or structured in some way to go ahead and accommodate to the release itself. What caught my attention is the ability to mimic and to be able to change field level securities for certain permission sets. So pretty much, I understand that, and this is something I'm learning as we speak myself, but each set of permissions is limited based on a particular object. There's not like a global set of permissions. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, but this tool is supposed to help now manage the global aspect of permissions from one object to the other and down to the field level as well. So I guess this is one of the things that makes Salesforce a little bit, simpler to ensure that there's more security, which is each of the field levels. There's different levels of security within each of the fields and the permission sets. So now you have a way to kind of control everything at once. So this one as well, I'm looking into figuring out what else is going to be included and what's going to be the final release notes that it's going to apply. But currently in this beta state, at least you have a way to kind of start playing around with it and seeing if it's something that can be useful for you, or you'll be like, you know what, I'll just stick to the way I'm doing this to manage field level permission and permission sets. The last thing I did want to mention is all this all these changes will apply to both Lightning and Classic editions of Salesforce. So do keep an eye out. Obviously, the Classic edition is still being used in some use cases. So it's nice to know that all these different features that I just spoke about within these release notes are applied to both sets. So they're not completely eliminating the Classic, even though Classic hasn't been something that's been promoted for, I would say, more than 5 years.
Yeah. And the field level security, field level security in itself is a super powerful and important part of Salesforce, because, you're going to have situations where you have information that some people need and some people don't, it's a customer relationship manager first. And so your sales team sold the deal or sold the product and had all these phone calls and meetings, and now your accountant has to send them invoices or send them a bill or take payment. They're going to have account numbers and check information and stuff like that. And there's probably no reason that your sales team ever needs to see the banking information of your clients. Or if you work in healthcare, there's certain people in the building that shouldn't see any information about what sort of medication somebody's on, but maybe they do need to know when their next appointment is. And so being able to have on one record all of the data that everybody needs, but then limit its visibility based on the role of that person is hugely valuable. And we see that with Mambo Merge, right? When it's, they want to generate a document, but the Mambo Merge will only be able to see what you can see as far as your permissions allow for that field level security. So giving people the ability to set those permissions when they're creating fields, I feel like is super helpful, because then it saves you a step when I'm like, okay, we need to add this to a record page. I want to add somebody's prescriptions because I work for a doctor. And then I would have to create that field on the object, and then I would have to go into my permissions, and then I would have to decide who gets access to that. It's so much easier to just when I'm creating it, be like, okay, and now who should have access? Who should have visibility into this, instead of having to remember to go do my permissions work after the fact. So I'm excited about that. Good find, Jessie.
Thank you.
Tommy, do you want to jump into your picks for Spring 23 release highlights?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and do it. So basically, if you want to scroll down, Chris, basically what is changing is the high-level inspection for pipeline changes. So basically, you'll be able to see various teams of metrics. Various teams will be able to see metric changes in real time and the general health of their sales pipeline. The UI is a little definitely an upgrade for sure, and it's included with in tandem with revenue intelligence, and the change field is also improving as well. You can also edit opportunities with multiple records in the sales pipeline with the inspection list views. This is a way that teams can basically consolidate and make better use of their time by looking at different opportunity records in the same sort of list view. And generally, it's just in general just a good cleanup for looking at active pipeline measurements that sales teams are going to want to go ahead and keep an eye on. So this is a little bit of an upgrade of it's not as drastic of a release as the other topic I covered, which is regarding the Pardot migration, but basically it allows basically using sales enablement for teams to collaborate on different deals, using an opportunity, using a new product. I believe it's a new product, correct me if I'm wrong, called Opportunity Product Splits. So a user can now work with multiple products and multiple team members without leaving an opportunity record. So it's basically just a UI as well as a various consolidation improvement for sales teams to hone in on deals together collaboratively. Excuse me. And it's available in multiple editions. So it's basically available enterprise developer and I believe in unlimited editions. So it's going to be a good feature in terms of the way that it's going to be accessible to most, if not all, Salesforce users. I believe we're kind of at this point for the release notes, and there'll probably be a part 2 of this. I would assume later this year, as we get more details. We're kind of just scraping the surface when it comes to where this is going to go. I think Salesforce is going to release more specific use cases and perhaps I would hope customer success stories as to where this is heading, because it could be, in my opinion, it could be a very powerful tool for sales teams, but it's the details are still very high level. That I think it's still in the works, and it will obviously be available in this release. Like I said, I think there'll be part 2, maybe even part 3 of how pipeline inspection is going to be evolving throughout the year. So I guess stay tuned and let us know if you have any questions going forward.
Cool. And the opportunity product splits sounds interesting, because I think opportunity splits existed in the past or have existed, but I think they were sort of percentage based, where it would be like,
Yeah.
me and you are collaborating on this opportunity, but I did 70% of the meetings and you did 30. So I put 70% in mine pipe and 30% in yours. And then when we do our pipeline looks, that was $100,000 deal, but I have 70K in my pipeline. You have 30K in yours. But so maybe the product splits will let people actually split the, individual line items. So you don't have to try to do that math of, I get credit for selling the car, but you get credit for selling the warranty. Okay, well, what's the percentage of a $10,000 warranty on a $60,000 car? Instead, we can just be like, oh, that product is in Chris's bucket, that product is in Tommy's bucket, and the pipelines line up accordingly. So I'll look into it more, but if that's what it is, that seems pretty powerful.
Yeah, and I think I would assume at some point Salesforce is going to have some sort of a demo basically to see how this is going to be acting in real time. I'm a visual learner, so I would love to see how those percentages are being split up based on the product that is in the pipeline and is looking to be sold, and how how to work it using it in real time and whatnot. So seeing those seeing it visually, besides just like general screenshots, like the screenshots make sense, I get it, but just having more exposure to demos from the horse's mouth would just be, I think, the way to go with this new product, because as you said, it's powerful, and we're sort of just seeing the beginning of this change. So it'd be great to hear more from Salesforce as time goes on throughout the year.
Cool. And then I think you had some highlights from Pardot, aka Marketing Cloud Account Engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously the first thing is that the Pardot naming convention obviously is going away in favor of it's residing in Marketing Cloud and as account engagement. And there are some very powerful and positive changes. And as if you read the post, full on, you'll see that like basically, and I was kind of waiting on this, and I was sort of on standby. That I was waiting for some of these changes to be released, and this is the final, or excuse me, the first iteration of finally seeing what changes are going to happen. And obviously, Jesse brought up a good, it was a great summary. That I'm not going to go too much into that because that was well covered about the real-time automation rules disappearing. That was surprising to see. But now, in terms of seeing real-time changes and having a dashboard for that. Chris, if you want to scroll back to my like big screenshot at the top there, real quick. Yeah, right there. Like to pay attention there. Seeing the basically the account engagement optimizer, where you're basically have you're going to be able to get definitive action items in your org to see if anything needs tweaking or breaks and whatnot. That wasn't here before with Pardot. You'd have to like kind of dig around to see if anything was breaking. Like for instance, if an automation rule wasn't firing off properly, or that wasn't properly configured. You would have to sort of know your backend data to rescope and recalibrate those changes in your org, and also things like email performance rates, not being up to snuff, for instance, would be another thing. Now you're going to be able to see like sort of like I would say like almost if I compare it to anything, like if in your car or something like that, and something needs to be monitored or needs repairs or something like that. Most newer cars have basically a dashboard where you'll see that what changes need to be honed in on maintenance. You didn't really have that before with Pardot. So now you're getting that. So this is a very positive thing. The only thing to look out for, in my opinion, is this is a beta release. Jesse talked about a similar beta release that you basically have to assume that this product might not be fully ready for prime time yet. However, it's anticipated that throughout this year, I think that it will get there. But just for right now, and like for this first month of the release, probably going into the rest of the winter, I would just say if you're signing up and going to be actively actively using account Marketing Cloud account engagement, to just be mindful that you might have to look to support to guide you, or look to experts to use the product, and expect that I would just keep it light for right now. But I think down the road it's going to be a very exciting product to use, much in the same way as the last product I spoke about, the pipeline engagement manager and whatnot. So
yeah, this optimizer kind of feels like a sibling or family member of the Sales Cloud, like adoption dashboard, or like the annual Salesforce health checkups that we recommend, where like just help you identify unused fields, underutilized objects, in this case, inactive Engagement Studio programs. I think it's sort of been my experience, at least in Pardot or Marketing Cloud account engagement, that you only, before this, you would only sort of start asking yourself those questions once you hit a limit, when you got that red banner that was like, oh,
yeah,
you have 100 automation rules you can't add anymore. And you were like, okay, well, now let me go through and figure out which ones aren't running. Or it's like, oh, too many engagement programs. And you're like, okay, well, they can't all be working right now. So now let's triage. This should save a bunch of time for admins and marketers.
yeah. I call that the storm warning banner.
Yeah.
So now you'll see like basically, ideally you'll see this. This will really help optimize orgs down the road, and I don't think it's going to be too much longer until we see it just not be so much a beta release, and that there'll be very good reliability with this. So.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you, Tommy. I'll try to be fairly quick with mine, because I always, say these are nice short videos and then I ramble and ramble. But so when it came time for me to pick some features to list here, I focused on pick lists. A couple changes, mostly in terms of like how pick lists are managed on the admin side, as opposed to like how they're used. on the user side. But basically, a couple things that are really designed to save admins time that I think people will be excited to hear about. And one thing that's kind of just like a heads up warning first is the ability to bulk manage pick list values. So delete, activate, deactivate, replace multiple custom pick list values all at once. Before, this was a very manual process that you had to do one at a time. So, this had 100 different values in it, but now we only need the top 10. We're simplifying or consolidating. That would have been, 90 instances of select it, delete it, save, scroll, select, delete, save. So being able to like mass do it at once is awesome. Whether you are an admin doing it yourself or a organization paying a consultant to do it for you, if it saves the consultant's time, that's going to save you money, right? Because you're only getting billed for 5 minutes instead of 2 hours. So that's a win on both sides of the aisle there. The second one is sort of the same thing, but it's the ability to clean up inactive pick list values. So the ability to bulk delete inactive, unused pick list values. Again, this was a manual process before, and because it was it was a manual process 2 or 3 releases ago. This rolled out as a beta in the previous release, and now it's going generally wide. So the same way, Tommy, you were saying, like, this is a beta for Pardot. Hopefully, it'll go wide later. This feature has experienced that. But so basically, prior to now, if you had inactive pick list values, it was going to be a pain to delete them, and there was no real incentive beyond best practices to do it, because it is clutter. It does take up space and make pick lists look ugly, or make the setup screen ugly. They won't actually appear in the pick list. But we actually are getting a reason to have to do it, which is what the heads up is all about. Those inactive pick list values are getting a limit. So this is announced for spring 23, but it's going to start being enforced in summer 23. And basically, we used to be able to have unlimited unused pick list values. And like I said, there was no reason to do that, except if you were just trying to save time and didn't want to go through and clean up your unused values. But because now we're going to have this limit, if you're over 4,000, you're going to need to go in there and clean them up. And then you're going to be very grateful that you have that formerly beta, now general feature to let you mass delete those. So, sort of the same boat as what we're talking about on the Pardot side. In spring 23, if you have more than 4,000 inactive pick list values, expect to see like a warning banner. And you can navigate to the pick list settings, and there's going to be a toggle that lets you switch back to unlimited. But then in summer, that toggle is going away. We're all going to be limited. So basically, you've got a few months to, stick your finger in the leak and try to get the water overboard before you sink. And then in summer, you lose the bucket. So you better have it fixed by then. But that's the changes that are coming to pick lists. And then the other thing I saw that I'm excited about is personalized report filters. And this is something that I think a lot of us sort of assumed Salesforce had, and you don't realize it until you're the admin tasked with doing it. But basically, one of the great things about Salesforce we always talk about is the ability to report on everything. If the data's in there, we can report on it. And users can all build their own custom reports and dashboards, which is something I think we all take advantage of. It's fun to manipulate the data. But when you're an admin rolling out a new app, or a business unit rolling out a new workflow, you are going to you have your user stories. And like, I've worked on a sales team before, and I would have a report that is, here's all my calls that I've made for the day, or like, let's see how I was doing over the course of the week in terms of like email engagements or whatever. Well, if I got a sales team of 10 people, I want to build the report once and then say, okay, no matter who opens this report, it's going to show them their activity for the week or their pipeline for the month. The report will be personalized to the user. And that wasn't really possible before. I could personalize it to me, or I could personalize it to a specific user. But that would mean either I would need to make the report and say, give me the pipeline report for Tommy. And then I would share that with you, Tommy. And then I would say, give me the pipeline report and filter it by Jessie, and then give that to Jessie. Instead, now we can create relative fields that will say, okay, here's the pipeline report, filter it by the user opening this report. Then I can send it to all of you. And then Tommy, when you open it, it's filtered by you. Jessie, when you open it, it's filtered by you. And as an admin, instead of me making an individual report for each member of my team, I just make the report once and it works for everybody. And realistically, a lot of admins weren't making that report 10 times, right? They were making the report one time. It was unfiltered, and they would email it to their team. And in that email, they would say, once you open this report, be sure to update the filter so that it filters just by you, and then save that as the new report, and sort of putting some of that work back on the user. That opens the door for, errors or people that don't read the emails. So this is going to be a huge time saver. Seems like something that should have been on the platform a long time ago, but I'm sure a lot of admins are super excited to see this. That is it. So I want to say thank you, Jessie, for sharing those looks into what's coming on sort of the sales and analytics side. Tommy, for taking us through some of the changes to Marketing Cloud, Pardot, and the pipeline inspection. And then, I ran through pick lists and the update to reports. These posts, you can read up on them in more depth over on the blog at Creme de la CRM. I'll throw the link to the blog as well as these individual posts in the description of this video. Also, the release notes are live at help.salesforce.com. I'll throw that in the description as well. But thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Jessie, for doing this. And thank you for watching, folks. Hope you're having a great day.
All righty. Thanks, guys.
All right,
Thanks,
thanks.
Bye.
Bye.